Hi, my name's Kat, and today Reddit has been asked, Waitresses of Reddit, what's the most awkward first date you had to witness firsthand? Saw a guy hitting on a girl and buying her drinks for the entire night, then realising she was a hooker. Not a first date, but very awkward. Guy comes in with an escort and drops a good amount of money on booze at the bar. Then she leaves a few hours later, and he informs us that his wife is on her way to meet him for dinner and tips us an extra $200 to keep our mouth shut. Keeping it classy. The guy starts talking about how nice it is in the modern day, that you can just date without labels. Women, in suspiciously chipper voice, responds that sometimes labels are really helpful in defining the boundaries of a relationship. Man, very upbeat, replies that sometimes it's nice to just enjoy your time with someone without having to define everything. It was so hard to listen to. I had these two people that were on their first date. After the appetizers, this poor man got the poops and was going back and forth to the bathroom all night. There was only a few other people in the restaurant at the time, so it was noticeable, and they were chuckling every time he got up. I honestly felt so bad for the guy. There was a guy who used to use the place I worked at as his go-to. Every time it's a different girl, and every time it ends with angry. He buttered them up and bragged about himself and talks about how much he is a gentleman for treating them to a classy place. And as gratitude, they should let him duck them. Every time the date walks away, we have to deal with this horny a-hole who tries to get in either pity sex or pity dessert from the female staff. Worked in a 5-star restaurant and witnessed a blind date where the female was on her phone the entire time. Not only was she not interested, but she ordered the surf and turf and then unbearded home. This one guy brought a junkie hooker to the restaurant and was trying to convince her that she was a sorority girl in another timeline or something. I sadly put a waiter through the awkwardness. I mean, it was kind of hilarious. I went on a date with another dude, except I didn't know it was a date. The entire thing was funny. I just thought he wanted to get wings and beers after our basketball game. Anyways, the thing is, the waiter came over right at the point where we started joking about it and heard some weird negotiation like, him, "You're saying you won't suck my bick even if I pay for your meal?" And me replying, in jest, "Well, maybe if I can order the steak." I waited on a couple. The woman was beautiful, slightly drunk, overly friendly, and showing cleavage. When I came back with their order, cleavage was covered. Woman was reserved, guy was angry but coping, waiter was feeling awkward but glad the issue was, dressed. A guy moaning and saying, "I'll have what I'm having," over and over. Not a waiter, but a first date I had myself. I met up with a guy from some other country. Neither of us were native English speakers, and though I'm fluent, I don't really speak food in English, nor my native language. The date was a pretty rough time to find out. Our poor waiter had to try and explain what all the menu items were. She got a pretty big tip out of it. I did see the guy one more time. That ended even more awkwardly. Lady comes in to get a table, says she's expecting a man and gives us a brief description. He shows up about 10 minutes later. She starts saying she knew it. He looks very surprised and scared. I took a drink order and when I get back, they're gone. The hostess fills me in that in my absence, they had a heated but civil exchange. The man was married to the lady's cousin, also the lady was married. Apparently they had been texting for a while after meeting via Craigslist personals. I'm assuming the marriage but looking section. Don't know if they hooked up in the end or just called the whole thing off. I work in a bar and 2 people on a Tinder show up. I didn't realise it was a Tinder date until the girl mentioned that it was because they seemed comfortable with each other and were making out at the bar, but she was making it very clear that they just met through Tinder. Eventually the girl kept asking me if I would go with them after I was done with the shift to party with them. I should have. Not exactly awkward for both people, but I once served a dude who came in with the date one night and another girl a couple nights later. He certainly looked awkward the second time when I came over to take the order. Felt extra bad for the second girl as she paid the whole bill. I worked as a barista at a coffee shop with a dishwashing sink that brought you face to face with whoever was sitting at the coffee bar across from you. For some reason, so many people choose this spot for their first dates, so I would have to wash dishes and pretend I wasn't literally on the date with them. One time, a person I knew was on their first date with someone and chose that cursed seat across from the dishwashing sink. Because we knew each other, we chatted a little bit, and then as if a partition raised between us, they began their date. but I still had dishes to do. So ducking uncomfortable. I bartend at a corporate sports bar where we have giant stupid novelty beer glasses as an option. If I had a nickel for every time a guy ordered the giant beer to impress his date, I could duck and retire. Just get a pint, dude. Worked at a pub connected to a brewery in college. Dude comes in with a stunning woman. I mean, she's absolutely gorgeous. Whole time they're sitting at the end of the bar. And you can hear the guy talking about how he has a room for them next door at the hotel in downtown. So they decide to go to the brewery next door. Gonna pull a little dine and dash. They got over there and didn't realise that we are on the same system. So he orders a couple beers and the bartender on the brewery side asks if he wants to add it to his tab. He looks over confused and says, "What tab? I've never been here." She prints off the restaurant bill plus his brewery tab. It's like $80 or so. He just blankly stares at the poor bartender, flies off the handle. The girl he was with ended up paying for it. They walked across the street and to the hotel. He's already invited her up. She stalls until her Uber gets there and just dipped out. Kind of funny, kind of awkward, but that's what you get for dine and dash. At the end of dinner, two couples on a double date dine and dash. I chased them down and the girl had no clue. Their dates had told them that they had already paid. The girls ended up paying, the guys had no cash. Not me, my friend. There was this young couple, said they were around 15, 16. The guy was going in for a kiss with a full duck face, closed eyes and everything. The girl looked disgusted and terrified at the same time. The best visual is a scene in X-Men when Quicksilver was saving everybody's butts and found that the couple on the roof, I don't know what movie exactly, but you get me. There was a lady in my section who was by herself. She was just waiting. This lady was absolutely gorgeous and dressed to kill. I ended up talking to her a bit since she was obviously bored. She was smart and seemed like she had a good sense of humour. It turned out she was there to meet a guy on a blind date. I was like, holy crap, what kind of a-hole would leave a woman like this waiting? A complete douche as it turned out. The guy eventually rolled in looking like a crunchy bro. This was a fine dining restaurant and acting as if he was just too cute. Apparently the woman confronted him about his being late because he actually got on the top of the table and asked everyone in the restaurant if they thought she should forgive him or not. Everyone ignored the guy. I think one guy said, "Get off that table, dude." They talked for a bit and then the guy went to the bathroom. I went to the table and said, "You don't need to pay for your drinks or anything. If you want to leave, you can just leave." She said thanks, but she ended up going ahead with the date. They left my section and went somewhere else. Honestly, the thought that that guy actually got away with cringe-inducing stunt disappointed me. I wanted her to ditch the guy so bad. I worked at Red Robin burger chain, and this couple came in. Sat down, had a short conversation, seemed to reveal that she was vegan before they awkwardly got up and left. I'll share my most awkward first date from back in high school, which I still cringe about to this day. I had a huge crush on this girl, thought she was really cool and I loved her art and I couldn't believe she said yes. We went to Lincoln Park Zoo because it was free and we were just broke teenagers, but we had a blast. Afterwards we went to go grab some food at this place before having to split off to go home. Our trains were heading in the opposite directions and the entrances were across the street from each other, so I walked with her to say goodbye. I closed my eyes and awkwardly leaned in to give her a kiss goodbye, and she went in more for a hug. I ended up headbutting her in the face and her nose started bleeding. I was so embarrassed and I didn't know what to say. So I just asked, "Are you okay?" She replied, "I think so." Still not knowing what to do, I just said, "Okay, bye," and then ran across the street to catch my train. It was so painfully awkward and embarrassing. I avoided her for weeks after that. Not a waiter, but a girl I met on a dating app a couple years back told me that this guy, who she also met on said dating app, set a date at this weird unknown ghetto bar in our town. And whilst the place seemed bad, the guy seemed cool, so she ended up going. She gets there early and sits down at the table. Guy isn't there yet. She notices two other girls, also alone and on their phone, sitting separately. As the time goes on, more and more single girls start walking in and sitting alone. At this point, the guy is late by 15 minutes. After 30 minutes, she stands up and asks one of the girls, "Sorry, are you waiting for Alex?" The girl surprisingly says yeah. Another one must have heard the conversation because she stood up and said, "Hey, I'm also waiting for Alex." Turns out, Alex had managed to invite 12 girls at the same bar, the same time. clearly as a prank. They ended up all sitting together and chatting and having drinks. Apparently it was a great night, and most of them kept in touch. 3 of them even went on vacation together in Europe. I'll always wonder if Alex, or whatever his new real name was there to notice it at all, or knows how his prank ended up turning. I enjoyed going through that thread. I found it quite funny, to be honest, and I'm also a people watcher, so if I was a waitress or waiter, I would have the most amazing stories. But I don't, because I'm not a waitress, I'm not a waiter, and I've never really been on a date other than the dates I've been with my boyfriend, and they haven't really been embarrassing, so I've got no stories to share. Anyway, if you want a part 2, comment down below. Also comment down below if you've got any embarrassing stories about dates, whether you were the person on the date yourself, or whether you've witnessed a really awkward date. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. This video is sponsored by me. Sweet Mouthful Mixes brings pick and mix sweets straight to your door. Choose up to 10 scoops of your favourite sweets, or pick a pre-packed bag. Sweet Mouthful Mixes has a 5-star hygiene rating, and full PPE is worn whilst making the bags. With over 50 sweets to choose from, you're guaranteed to find something you like. Treat yourself, you've earned it. Get 20% off with code REDDIT.